each different bubble of reality is true.
A galactic historian is a person that looks at all the lines of dramatic karma.
Nudge, nudge. It's the Holy Grail.
Improvise. Mysterious.
It's counter psychic intelligence.
Why is DNA farming of this star cluster so important?
Because we do manifest our reality. We do create our reality.
So essentially, it is in a sense tracking the Mayan calendar that we are moving into unity consciousness and a golden age, quote unquote. But the difference being in this time frame or in this timescape that in the past ages where there's been a lessening of the densities of the sine wave has stretched out, there has been no graduation, so then it's contracted and expanded, but there haven't been any graduating classes in
38,000 years.
38,000 years. So, for instance, what's happened with Sirius and some of the other planets, that
their graduation is held up by ours.
So, is this really the big plug in the drain?
It's the cork on the champagne bottle.
Oh, okay. That's
everyone wins.
Okay.
Everyone gets their ascension codes.
Okay.
Because for here it's finishing the global ascension code. So all beings have the property. All beings on the graduating timeline that have proven their graduation get the code to leave.
Okay, and that means that we have access to 7 universes, and there are 11 others that we have not accessed at yet.
Correct.
But we have access.
But they have access. Those others have access to us.
Okay.
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 So we will then go out to look for them.
Ah, so this is like the explorer race.
Yes.
I think it was David Shapiro wrote about that. Wrote a whole series called the Explorer Race. Yes, and they're wonderful books.
Yes, wonderful books.
Yeah. So that's our destiny, and the illusions will drop for us. For the 65%. And then that's when you said that we will be able to develop or become familiar with the spiritual technology of being multidimensional and being anywhere, so that we can...
Many people will get something that just looks like a desk, an office chair,
right,
and a monitor, and a second room that's right next to it. It looks like a relaxation room. The desk and the monitors for the 3D Matrix U to learn to create third eye visual or hologram room. The recreation room is to learn it without doing it with the technology.
Wow. So we will have... how will this technology, how will that be provided? Is that by a higher...
The technology that's waiting to be given to us simply because we are going to complete soul codes just by allowing us to physically meet. And that, for them, is huge.
And we'll be able to converse with each other. I mean, we'll be able.
In my opinion, what I'll do, I will offer events for the galactic families to come to Mount Shasta.
Wonderful.
And offer humans to come there at the same time and intermeet them in a ceremony.
Wow, I'm getting chills.
So we all can get along.
Oh, I'm getting chills. And then, of course, you've got the beings of Telos and the rest
all
that can then
there too can come in,
and we can meet
a
meeting of the minds,
the soul family minds.
Yeah, wow, that is so wonderful. And then we will be you said that we'll have the opportunity, if we so choose, and people will have different choices available to them.
Oh yes.
But in our development of this technology, 25 years may pass for us. Well, those who don't graduate, who are not ready, are still in dream time, working on the technology, and we'll have an opportunity to place an avatar.
Well, there'll be many people who go fishing for loved ones caught in those dream worlds. And that will be service to the Earth's dream time, because you're choosing to be a healer. You're gonna insert yourself into that reality, knowing it's fake, and do whatever you can do to get that person to
But we won't be stuck there like we feel like we are now.
You can go in and out of it.
Like we have to incarnate through the archontic grids and with
that's gone.
Okay, so that is being replaced.
Yes,
and that is all part of the shift.
Correct.
Or the ascension process.
Once you take the incarnation grid completely out, back into the control of Earth, the greasy oil, the wheels greased.
Right, and that's another question I wanted to ask you. Originally, how did the organic process of incarnation work through the Earth before it was corrupted?
It was a free-willed incarnation pattern that everything was done through spiritual cord of equity that the Earth oversaw. So you would have one family lineage, soul family lineage, another soul family lineage, another soul family lineage. If this soul family lineage had a dispute amongst itself, it would go to the Earth consciousness to read the Akashic Record in total to give a judgment in neutrality for that single soul family.
Oh.
If two soul families came together, they contracted Earth to look at all of them and to figure out the issue. That's how they did that.
So Earth has been basically dominated and controlled, and taken
away
out
because our genetics were changed in such a way that we no longer had the proper thing for the user manual of the human body.
And is that when the 15 families...
Well, it began before the 15 beings, because there were ultimately even the other two big light and dark forces that were trying to go after Earth before the beings came in understood the importance, but the 15 beings were smarter than these other ones and weaseled their way in and locked them out.
Wow. Wow. But it wasn't through our invitation to experience duality and hardship.
No.
It was basically, well, this looks like a good situation. Let's see how we can outsmart them. And they did.
And they did.
And the 15 families that are operating at what dimensional existence?
6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th.
Okay. So that tells us a lot. And then the archons, which are in control of the mind control and the incarnational process, they're
the ones that oversee the courts now, where Earth doesn't oversee the courts anymore.
Earth has been completely taken out of the court system. Where is Earth residing? Suppressed.
That part of her will is suppressed because our race doesn't know how to create courts of equity, spiritual courts of equity.
And it's been
because it's taken away by when our oral traditions were taken away.
And the indigenous tribes were murdered intentionally and replaced with
all the pipe holders too.
And the courts that we presently have.
Because the pipe was the presence of the court. So when they shared a pipe in court and in council, that pipe was can be psychometry, could be used on it to prove that there was a court then, court with Earth, and that would be why the pipe holders were taken. And all the warriors, all the peacemakers, all of them.
I got my first call already. 803, you're on the air. Your name and where you're calling from?
This is Festus B2B on the chat.
Hey, Festus, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm from Chapin, South Carolina.
Oh, how's the weather in South Carolina?
You know, it's unbelievable.
No, that's good. We got fog here this morning.
It's 72 degrees, and it's going to climb probably to 80 at the most, and then it's supposed to have thunder showers. But it's like the light switch, flicked on and off. We call it turned on down here instead of, I don't know what y'all say up there, but we use
switched on.
Switched on, yeah, okay. We use turn the light on down here. So there's a little southern humor. Mm-hmm. But anyway.
What's been going on with you?
Well, I'm just calling. I had a dream last night, the first time I've dreamed in, I can't tell you when. And it was a pretty interesting dream, but what I'd like to do is go into, the healing process when y'all are talking about healing people from afar and having, doubt in the back of your head, and it just pops out like this isn't going to work. But you don't feel that way, but it just pops out. Frank was doing a healing on me, my eyes, and it just came out of nowhere. The doubt came in my head, just out of the blue. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't doubt Frank. I don't doubt anyone. And I've been awakened to these facts that they do work. The energy comes to you. But you got to accept it. Mm-hmm. If you talk a little bit about that, I think it would help a lot of people online as well. And I don't know whether it's I think you had talked about the suicide project or something you're doing, and all of a sudden it just goes flat on you, or everything goes wrong. That type of.
I understand.
That's what's happened to me.
Okay. I actually understand where you're coming from. And a lot of time when that speck of doubt enters, the infinite connection you have ends. And then the house of cards tumbles down. That's essentially the concept you're talking about.
Yeah, well, I'm a very optimistic person, and that's what's got me through. I'm an artist.
The key is there's a fine line between hope, inspiration, and where doubt comes in to cut out the pegs of hope and inspiration. At times, hope can turn against us because hope is an etheric energy. It's not a tangible energy. And when we bring this tangible energy in, like healing from another, and suddenly there's a moment of doubt, and that moment of doubt creates a separation between the infinity. What that is you're not fully anchored to the infinity. You're there just enough so there's drip, drop onto your tongue to keep your mouth from drying out. And when healing energy comes like such from Frank, and Frank's a great healer, I respect his skills quite much in 30 years of doing what it is that he does. And even in my situation, there are times that people reject the knowledge, reject the wisdom, reject the healing, and that's all right. In your situation, it's a little different. What I say is you're like turning the knob on a garden hose, and on the other end of the garden hose, there's a nozzle. And it's one of those nozzles you can turn and make a giant cone. And right now, you're turned tight, and there's just dripping out here and there, here and there. And what it is inspiration and hope are getting you the concept of the hose and the turn-on knob and the little tiny drip. To take it to the next level, you have to have dreams about it. And this dream that you had last night was really about, in its own strange way, of how to convert hope and inspiration into tangible psychic experiences that take you beyond the finite and into the infinite and allow you to create an anchor to that world. One of the reasons I'm able to do what I do is I have anchors in many different worlds, as well as this world, and it's all like a network of information that's feeding me with just wisdom, knowledge, hope, inspiration, and all of that. But that all comes into my heart, and my heart is what makes the determination if my mind is going to express that will. And you're at the point your heart is full of this wisdom, but as it translates from heart wisdom to mind wisdom and action, that action turns knowledge into wisdom. That's where you're at in this process of transmuting heart wisdom to mind wisdom to physical action. All right, you understand that?
I believe I do.
Okay. Well, the key is, how do we do it? What is the crossover? Well, the first thing that comes is prayers. It doesn't matter what form the prayers are in, external, internal, writing it on paper. It's about taking that mind of yours that's listening to the heart and saying, at some point, I'm missing 100% of the concept. I may have 99% of it, but that 1% prevents me to going to the infinite ideas of concepts. And to do that, it's prayers. Prayers come in many forms. Prayers can be done through musical instruments. Prayers can be done through words and singing. And in your situation, what are your prayers like?
Just the verbal speaking and acknowledging, the entity that will give me a direction to flow in or go in or look at an area I'm blind in.
Okay.
Divine guide.
The divine wisdom. Everybody has a different source and definition of that wisdom. There are many different ways to pray. There's a way to pray to yourself because yourself is connected to that of the all of nature and to the concept of God that exists on all layers. So understanding that your prayers need to go into layers. Okay. You can pray to your higher...
I don't have a form or way of praying. I just talk it out.
That's good. You have that raw nature. Well, it's time to take that raw nature and put it on the bicycle of life and get going faster than the 10 miles an hour or 2 miles an hour you're going.
Yes.
Okay, if you don't want a bicycle, a motorcycle, or a car, it's all about the energy you're putting into that vehicle of prayer. And that vehicle of prayer is a hybrid of many things. It can start in writing. You can write out a prayer that says specifically for you to cross over that hope and inspiration line into that tangible form of psychic experiences that helped you understand where, when, and why things are starting to have pegs pull out of them. And that's because of the densities of energy, and prayer is a way to help us understand the density of energy that we have in our body, our mind, and our spirit.
Now, I had been told, I had one that did a totem on me, and I had spoken to you about those entities. Top of the totem was the water buffalo, and then the second totem was the moose. But I had been told, too, that I'm the second witness. And that has rang true throughout my life, I think, because what I do is I hear something or witness something, and I will tell others or teach others, that process from the originator. Or I will take what they've offered, and be a little more creative in the presentation, or either a different vantage point of it. But that's what I've been told. I don't know. That's what I have actually recognized.
Okay. What do you mean by witness?
The first witness is the one that actually happens or do the research like you.
Okay.
And then I will come along and utilize what you have said and taught and understand to where I interpret it so I can communicate to others that process.
Okay.
And it's not defaming you or, utilizing what you know. It's enhancing, where others haven't heard you yet,
Exactly. I understand.
It takes about 2 years. I'm serious. It usually takes 2 years for people to come back to me, and this is usually in the health situation, or, I use magnets to help people. They will look at me like, man, you're crazy. And then 2 years later, they'll walk up to me and say, I can't believe it, but you were right. And this is about law. I study law, and in fact, I put down my artwork to study law.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where my interest is right now. And I'm looking to either move on from that or do other things. I'm doing other things with it, but there's another level I believe I have to go into.
Yes, and that is honestly about the term I talk about, vision quest. And that vision quest is where you connect to your heart, you connect to your wisdom, and you tell your mind, let's comprehend what this wisdom is. To go on to the next level, you've got to find out what your goals are. And sometimes your third-dimensional physical world goals don't align in complete definition to what your heart's definition is. And one of the reasons you get people that are coming and going to is the type of soul you are. You're tidally connected. So as the tidal forces of the earth raise and fall, so does the energy of your spirit. And as your energy raises based on the land that you're on, you have this omnidirectional beacon that pulses out, connects to soul groups, and the wisdom that you've taught them is re-clicked on. They come back to you, and then new people come to you in this wave pattern over and over and over again. And this is here, you've witnessed it before, and now you want to utilize this wave energy so that you can make the jump from being one set of concepts with a whole new set of concepts that create the ladder of your life and the ladder of your past, present, and future teachings, because you want to be a teacher. It's clear about that. You've been teaching for a long time. You've taught yourself. You've connected to this wisdom. But to find that courage, that knowledge, that wisdom to have your personal vision quest that allows you to understand how you get in your own way and aren't aware about it is your natural truth. And that's one of the things that the ego tries to control on the most subtlest levels. And I mean, it's so subtle, you don't get it until somebody points it out to you, or you find yourself in that quiet room alone going, why can't I get this going? Get it in gear. It's like a car that's a stick shift car that's having a slipping transition. transmission, and that slipping transition is kind of where you're at. You've got all the skills, you've got all the knowledge and wisdom and the ability to speak, but you're trying to formulate it into the future, and it needs to be formulated in the present. You understand that?
I believe I do. I understand what you're talking about, the natural energy coming out of me. It's just like people have always, ever since I was in grammar school, 6th grade on up, people would just come to me and talk to me about anything. And I was accepting it and learning from it, but I also, out of the blue, it was like an alternative presentment to them of their dilemma or their situation or how they might handle this idea they had presented to me. And I've grown from that. Now, I mentioned to you that a couple of weeks ago that I tried to get back in touch with you back later, that I wasn't a reader. It's an effort for me to read. Mm-hmm. But I read, and I can sit down for hours and read, but I don't go out and seek something to read. It just comes to me. Things just come to me, and I've learned to use that innate ability. When I'm doing something, it will come to me, and I will be able to use that innate ability to hone in on and understand it a little better. But that's one of the things I have learned to get around, as far as my reading disability. But that's what I do. Mm-hmm. So yes, I am searching for that natural energy that you're talking about.
Right, and I understand where you're coming from, and it's not really about reading. It's about taking all this wisdom, putting it together in the cipher of the heart and mind, and then using your hands to mold that concept. Some people do it through artwork, some people do it through writing, some people do it through other mediums and means. And right now, you need a way that takes all of this energy and then puts it into something your hands can make, your mind can see, your heart can feel, and your body can understand. And then that will be your anchor to bring even more energy out of your teaching and wisdom so you can manifest it here and then go into the future with that anchor helping you understand. You can create solid foundation instead of card cities and card towers that can fall down at the wind. And that's the lure of hope. Hope is a healing thing, but at the same time, it can quickly turn into poison. I'm sure you've seen people full of hope and to the point you just realize they're deluded.
Yeah.
You're nowhere near that stage. You know the reality and the facts of your life and that you have to manifest. So this is a manifesting moment for you to bring into your concept. One of the reasons I decided to do the Mount Shasta conference with the hosts that I chose to pick out was because they're all manifestors. They know what it takes to manifest healing in themselves and in others. And the point of this conference was to bring manifestors together so we can share our wisdom and knowledge, heal people, and when the time is done, we'll all give a hug and separate and then pass on the torch of wisdom and knowledge to others. And that's where you want to do and want to be in whatever method it turns out. You need that solidifying time that you created by yourself. And that's why I created a conference like this for those that want to pilgrimage or take an adventure and take a chance to meet others that are of the like mind and like spirit so that we can come together and share.
Yeah, I think we need each other. All of us do.
Absolutely. We all need each other.
Right. I really believe that. And that's why I'm here, and that's why I have this taken to heart and trying to understand the things that you do and all the others, JP and Frank and all the other people online. It's a diversity there that is just cramming your head. If you can take it all in at one time, it takes a while to get it settled in and utilize it.
Yep.
But that's my L. That's where I thrive. It's just that diversity of information.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever done a past life regression class?
No.
No? Has that ever thought about doing it before or kicked that idea around in your mind?
No, I haven't thought about that. I think the first time I called you and JP were on, and I said something of the nature of, Andrew, we're all I can think of right now is this state, this county, this nation, this world we're on, the body of world we're on in our solar system is as far as what my mind is, that's as far as we project ourselves into. And you're taking it to a whole nother dimension, and that's a blessing. And but you're talking about past lives and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I haven't had any idea of doing anything like that.
Okay. This is something you should do is, maybe do some internet research on what past lives are. I've read your soul contracts, and I understand exactly where you are right now. You are creating this foundation for your new world, because you already know the new world is already solid. The forces of domination and control have already left. It's a matter of the final negotiations to say, quit now, or we tear the power out of your cold, dead hands. You know this deep in your soul. The new age to you is already here, and now you're trying to manifest change before the change so you can be one of the new elders of the new world, because we'll need new elders. We'll need people of wisdom who can reach out to a vast array of soul groups who will need healing. And that's just the... Go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. One of the things, just what you're saying, when I started to put down my artwork, I didn't know why, but in the few years that I was studying it, and it was like a foreign language and foreign thing to me, it was like the idea, me doing this was going to heal the country or heal the nation, or, I wasn't even expecting the world. I don't know why, but it just had that. You're talking about exactly why I had the calling. I had to accept it or reject it, and I accepted it.
Right, and that's your soul contract. And to be able to recognize that, and for me to give you this confirmation, it goes beyond the concept of hope and inspiration. It's your confirmation and your choice to do with it now, because you have multiple compass headings. You're charting your course. You go a little east, a little west, a little south. You got to go around an obstacle. Well, now you have a clear course. And that clear course is, what do I want to do to manifest in my life? What is it right now that I need to take this to the point where I can reach out to those people and heal?
Right. Well, see, by me stating what I did in the beginning about having that doubt of the healing, well, that's what I have been receiving from people every day when I speak. Mm-hmm. And I guess it was just popped out in me. And another thing, too, I'll lay down, and before I go to sleep, these terror dreams or terror thoughts come into my mind, like somebody's gets ran over by a car. These type of things, hard things that will manifest all of a pop out.
Yep.
And I'm sitting going, man, where did that come from? Yep.
And you're trying hard. And I'm going to tell you where it's coming from. It's coming from all the court cases that you're energetically connected to. Right now, about 15 to 18% of your infinite soul is linked into the court system, battling it at all the time. And you're getting psychic impressions of the things that are going on in the courts, actually.
Okay.
And it's going to call for a time where you've got to take your energy out of the court, purify it, allow it back in your body, and say, court, I understand your game. If when I'm next involved with you, you don't get my energy. I put the energy in there from the infinite universe, and this paperwork's a battery with the universal energy and not my heart energy.
Well,
and that's that's the coping skills that people that are psychic like you need to learn. Now that you know that you're putting your energy into it and you can put a different energy into it, that's the concept of being the psychic and upon somebody that's in the law organization. I mean, you know dang well that when you're doing a piece of paperwork that's going to, make or break a person's life or make or break a case, it's big thing. It's stress, and that stress can get inside us, and that's what the court wants. It wants the stress inside you so that the paperwork has strings attached to your soul so they can drain energy from you.
Exactly. That does. In fact, my mentor was fighting his IRS case. He's a railroad man, and he had railroad retirement, and they were coming after him for back taxes. Well, he did, and this is how they work. They used that man's energy. He put in paperwork every day. That was his taxes, his energy. And I saw that. By the time he was through, they left him alone finally. They do this, and they'll come back and get you again. He had like this vision standing in front of a refrigerator. By the time he got through, after 5 years of paperwork, he had 2 stacks of paperwork as high as a refrigerator. Mm-hmm. He worked on his case every day for those 5 years. Mm-hmm. That was his taxes being paid to him. And that's exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. And the seminars are about learning the coping techniques and wisdom about paperwork. Example, every time a bill comes in your mail, it has strings attached to it that people are unaware of. And when you start to learn these coping skills of how much your energy is divested into the physical world and to the third dimensional concepts of materialism and consumerism, that's where you understand the game of the forces that are in control right now. And healing is a way of changing the rules of the game so they can no longer affect you. Let's take that example of the man from the railroad every day. If he had someone that could explain to him that the energy he was putting into that can be from the energy of the universe, which can be infinitely more powerful than just his own, think of how different that 5 years would be of investment.
Well, see, he was teaching me through what he was doing, and he was too close to the situation. Mm-hmm. He was in the fight or flight mode. Yep. And I wasn't. I was sitting there looking, reading over his paperwork, and it was phenomenal stuff. And it didn't matter how good it was or whatever. And then I realized how much energy he had put into this whole scenario.
Yep.
And they left him alone. He figured, I won. So, he's 78 years old now. And they had come back in and tried to go into his bank account and take so much out of his paycheck, his retirement. But he stopped that as well. But
all right.
But the energy he took in there, and that's what I realized. That he had paid his taxes. Mm-hmm.
That's the tax you have to live in this world, and that's an absolutely wrong concept. And that's what about the future generations, our 7 future generations, our children coming in. That's what it's about, to give them a world where they don't have to pay to live.
Right.
Okay?
Exactly. What I'm having my problems with, too, relating to people, and it's taking them 2 years, 3 years. Some people don't even think about it. And I understand you just have to leave them alone and let them do their own thing, is how would I be more effective from your vantage point on presenting these ideas to people?
How do you get more? Really, it's about recalling your energy that's invested in paperwork that's all over the country. Uh-huh. It's about, how much paperwork have you done in the last 3 years, would you say? 300 pages, 3,000?
Oh, no. In fact, what I have done is try to release my paperwork. Not even try to do paperwork. Mm-hmm. You see, I understand that's my energy going into that paperwork. And I've tried to do more of, taking it out, letting the energy in a different form come out instead of doing paperwork, you see. I'm not a wordsmith.
When you were doing paperwork, how much would you say you did?
Oh, God, it was a lot. Right. In fact, the paperwork landed me in jail because of foreclosure for 8 months without they had a $250,000 cash bond on me, and I had done a common law complaint after the foreclosure, and they sold my house. It was a $6 million lawsuit against the Bank of America and the law firm in the foreclosure. You see, I understood what the foreclosure was in every part of it. And they threw me in jail on another charge. And I sat in jail in isolation until they took my house and the property. And my wife divorced me, and I went through that change. And then the Supreme Court justice, the first month I was in isolation, wrote a order to all the courts of court in the state of South Carolina. Do not accept any paperwork of his from anyone, from him, or from anyone on his behalf, or from him on somebody else's behalf. That was a statewide order to all the courts of court in the state of South Carolina.
Mm-hmm. Because your paperwork was that destructive.
Exactly. I pinpointed them to that point where they got frightened, and they had to do something about deter me and others, you see, watching me, and this is what happened. And it didn't stop me,
mm-hmm.
and I do things, and I get thrown in jail, contempt of court or whatever, that doesn't bother me. It's what I have to do what I'm doing,
Right.
And I know I have to pay that price, but I don't have to pay that price if they would just honor their commitment on their position. And I'm trying to give them, and I don't hate them.
You do know deep down inside they will never honor their commitments.
Well, that's what I know that. But deep down inside, you have to give them that option of choosing. Like God gives you that option, you got to follow Him or not.
Honestly, that's the separation here, and that's one of the reasons inspiration and hope is not being tangible. Right now, we're gonna give just a random number. Say 40% of your energy is invested into paperwork that's throughout the statewide, that's in other people's hands. And whether you're aware of it or not, that energy is still a part of you. You haven't fully recalled that energy. And honestly, the biggest, most stick in the eye you could do to these Supreme Court justices, to the local people, is to literally recall your energy. And you'll have to do it in a personal ceremonial time where you say, the next 2 hours, I do nothing. The rest of the world doesn't exist. And I am going into my meditative state, into my prayer state, and I am taking back every single ounce of energy that I invested into paperwork. I am bringing it in front of me, and then you're going to ask the universe to repair, renew, recycle, and re-heal this energy so it can be a part of you. And then at the same time, there's going to be a void of energy that's in that paperwork. And you can tell the universe, this is the paperwork that they will not honor. I ask you, the universe, to put the energy in this paperwork so they must go through the process of honoring their commitment. And if they do not honor their commitment, let the laws of karma come down and be a part of this paperwork. You are then separated from the paperwork, given it to the universe to play the chess games of karma with those people who are not honoring their commitment.
In other words, I need to look up away from my paperwork.
Yeah, in one way, but it's really you've got to recall. You can still do it. You've got the paperwork that's already out there, the stuff that the judges said, no, you can't because it's extremely destructive. You can still teach about it. You got to physically take your energy out of it.
Right.
And then as the void is out of it, the energy of the universe is putting in it, and the intent you're sending is asking the natural law, the universal law of karma, to be the energy in it. And that will be 1,000 times more beneficial to the paperwork than just your energy in it.
Right, okay.
Because the universal law is in effect there. And that universal law goes to everyone, even the forces of domination and control. And like you said, not all those judges are bad. Many of them know the game and know how screwed up it is. And when the universe steps in, it forces them to go through dark nights of the soul to understand that negative things are going to happen until they make the right choice. And it's not you affecting them. It's not you using the energy to make them force a choice, because they won't choose until their heart tells them this is wrong and I have to do something. Otherwise, at the end of this lifetime, it's not going to be good for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, in fact, I even told a female magistrate that in my last case, I kept objecting to what the patrolman or the deputy sheriff was stating. And in front of the jury, I wanted a trial by jury, and they gave me a jury trial, which is two different things. Mm-hmm. She said, do you know any other words besides I object? And I turned to her, and I said, yes, I do. I love you. And she went, what? I said, I love you. And she just kind of looked at me, and she started laughing like, it was a joke, And I don't know. I didn't turn to the jury. I didn't speak to the jury. I didn't speak to the guy, and she just kind of put this smirker on her face. And so you've really done a number now, and and she's kind of stumbling around. She didn't know what to say to that,
Mm-hmm.
But I gave her that energy, I tried to, and she threw me in jail for 70 days. So, but listen, I went to jail and I help people, and that's what I do.
Right.
They listen to me, and they're in dire straits, and I try to help them while I'm in there.
You're fulfilling your soul contracts, and you are. Well, you are. You see, you just don't understand on the scale of contracts you've already fulfilled. Because you got a Supreme Court justice of your state to make an edict that go into all other judges, you did something that kicked the court system right in the butt and the balls. I mean, they've got a swollen nutsack right now from your kick. All right? And that's why you've been in and out of jail. That's why you've got this. And they're still speaking in a high voice from the kick.
Right.
Well, you want to do the next level that makes that kick really effective but doesn't affect your karma. Right now you're dealing with their games, and every time you go to court, you put this energy out. You affect some minor levels that affects a different level, but it ultimately is coming back on you because the court has a very specific rules where it can reverse energy back to you in a court karma situation. And that's because there's so many people that don't really know that the court is a lie and is a completely falsehood. So their energy is being invested into a system that's deception. And then you get the brunt of this energy from all these people that are just unaware of the way the court really is. And by returning your paperwork to the universal law, that energy of the court can no longer affect you. And that means they can't play the chess game on your soul.
Okay. Wow. Okay. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I needed that.
Yeah. I mean, so here you are. You're having this. You've awakened to this, and you've known it before. I'm just putting it out in the open so that you can hear your heart saying, that's the right compass direction for me. Well, how do I take this to the next level? That was your question from the beginning. How do I get beyond the people that are communicating with and get to the bigger audience? Doing a show like this has really expanded your potential of audience. And that's because you spoke from your heart, you spoke from your wisdom, you spoke from your hurt, your pain, and at the same time, you spoke about how to help change everyone. You're a healer. You're using your wisdom from the court and how to affect it to heal yourself, those people you meet in jail, those people you meet outside. Well, now it's time for you to do the next level, where the court has this game they play, and it can affect you on a soul level. You know that your paperwork itself is going to be rejected. Well, you're going to have to take it to a wider range of people. And it's almost like you're going to have to write a spiritual text that's written in the law language that has the universal language and laws of karma attached to it, so that when it enters the system, I'm going to say the word poison pill, and that may be misinterpreted, but that's what it is. Because the system itself is poison right now. It isn't healing energy. So what you're doing is putting healing energy into a system, and that's why it's a poison pill. Right. When you're not going to be literally invoking universal law, you're going to be changing the energy of the paperwork. So when it enters the system and the system has to process it, all of a sudden it infects the system with the universal laws that we must get rectification for this misjustice of the system that is an illusion and a miscreant upon this world. Okay?
Yes, okay.
Okay. We have quite a few shows here on Revolution Radio and Wolf Spirit Radio that talk about that. Are you forbidden to talk about this on radio shows? Did they put a gag order or anything?
No, no. I call all types of shows and speak to people. They accept me.
Well, maybe you should come on Wolf Spirit Radio or one of the other guests here. Bo and Rocco have been here for years, and they're talk about the law and sovereignty. Probably be a good idea for you to get a hold of them or Mike McCracken too, and get on air and explain your paperwork. And then
In fact, I'm going to be on today with Nanook.
Oh yeah, he's a great guy.
Right, and we're going to be discussing equity law and contract law, the versions of them. So that's what we're going to be doing today.
That's good. He's a good guy. What is that? 5 to 7?
Yeah, 5. Well, no, it's 4 to 6, I believe it is, on World Spirit Record.
Easter time.
Yes.
Okay.
No, the Pacific time.
4 to 6 Pacific. Okay.
Right.
Okay, so that's a great opportunity. Well, now we're going to be coming up on our break in 3 minutes. If you hear music, hold on, and we'll go on over here because this is really interesting, and I'm glad that you called in now. So we got to solidify these concepts in you. As I said in the beginning, prayer. Believe it or not, paperwork and ink are extremely important in this world. Because ink and paper are on our money, there's rules that are created around them. And the law is using the rules that are created around ink and paper to make contract law that attaches to your spirit in a crude form of spiritual contract law. And I call this the fine print they put on your spiritual contracts. And people can eliminate these really easy once they become aware of that. And then they can stop the reach in energy of the tendrils of the court to take energy out of you so you don't have enough energy to battle it with all of your will. So prayer is very important. Prayer to the change that you want. The next layer of prayer is to ask that all of your energy and every single ounce of paperwork you've ever put out to remove all the energy from the ink and the paper, to bring it back to you and be purified, allow that energy to be a part of you. And then you ask the universe in that void of energy to fill that ink and that paper with universal law, and that all people that are not honoring their commitments, that karma be the form of justice there.
Okay, let me give you an idea of what you're talking about now. In contract law, it's written down on paper. It's a contract that is fulfilled by the other obligation. You got a creditor and a debtor.
Mm-hmm.
In equity law or trust law is control. It controls. Equity law controls trust law.
Yep.
Now, when you present something in the court and you make a special deposit in that court, and that's a term used in equity law, that you are depositing a private.
And welcome back, everybody, to the second hours of Adventures to Reality. We're joined by Festus 2B from the chat room. Festus, you there?
I'm here.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm getting a lot of love from the chatters, so I appreciate it, and I love y'all back too.
Yeah, and we love all you chatters. And I saw someone say if we focus energy, he feels that energy. He really does. He's an extremely powerful person. And he's broken through his own layers of reality to really realize there's even more layers. One of the reasons he's connected to me and called in here was so that he can interpret for me my perspective, so he can look at his perspective and see, what do I need to add? And then his heart will determine the compass direction of what he adds. And it's his own personal discernment that will add to his whole, and his whole will add to the whole healing of the situation here. And we've heard a story of being thrown into jail, an actual Supreme Court Justice of South Carolina putting an edict down to not accept his paperwork. That's big. Like I said, you kicked him right in the nutsack. And now we're at this point, well, what can you do to manifest even more in your life?
Well, I was talking about equity. You were talking about, the paperwork, and I was talking about speaking instead of utilizing my energy into all the paperwork I was doing. Mm-hmm. And understanding it was utilizing my energy, and you hit it. It was an energy that I really didn't need to utilize, but it was powerful, and it did give them another perspective, which I was trying to do. But and I was going into equity and trust law, and that's one of the things we'll be talking about today. And in trust law, you go to the equity court, and you have to find the equity court in your state or county. And there is one. And they're still viable, and there's still rulings in equity. true equity, inherent equity that are protecting your substantive rights on this earth or in this nation. Now, one of the techniques or tactics that you do is you take a case, you withdraw it like you withdraw a deposit in the bank. Okay, you do a withdrawal, and then you redeposit that case into the equity court, and excuse me, and you're basically forming a trust. And the res, the property, is the case. Okay, and that's one of the parts of a trust. So the res is the case, and you're redepositing it under a private case now. In other words, when you put the paperwork in the back into the equity court, redeposit, the paperwork is blank. There's no words on that piece of paper. It's just sheet and sheet. Depends on how many sheets you want to put in there, but it's a blank piece of paper. And you're sitting there looking at it like, what the heck is this?
And no ink.
Right. And what you're doing, in other words, it's a private situation. It's only between you and the court. Nobody else, not the public, not like we're speaking here. This is a private presentment to the court. Now, you have to understand, if they go beyond that, if they present it out into the court, into the public, now they're in breach of the trust. And in trust law, that is very, and they understand trust law more than we ever will, because they're using it every day. We think they're using contracts. No, it is actually trust law, and it is a detrimental thing to them. That's what I'm learning. Now, this isn't legal advice, people. I'm not an attorney. I don't want to play, anything of the sort. I'm just trying to give you some idea of a perspective on equity, and this is where we have been kind of steered away from, because they're using it, and we've gone into contract, and they are using actually equity law and trust law. Yep. So the blank piece of paper in the court is a private presentment. You go into the chambers of the judge, and the chancellor, actually chancellor of the county, head of the court usually, and you present your trust to them. Now, the attorney can't speak. In fact, sometimes the attorney on the opposite side or the participant on the other side cannot even speak, because it's a private trust between you and the court. And that's what I'm learning, and that's why I said paperwork, and I'm speaking, in court. I haven't done this process yet. But, and see, she was trying to give me an idea, too, with her, and this is how I looked at it. When she put out that edict about not accepting any paperwork, she was saying, making a statement to me, our courts aren't for you. You have to do something else.
Right.
And I think I have found that something else.
Right. She left you no option but equity court.
Right.
And that's the thing. Equity courts were stopped being taught in the 50s and 60s on purpose, because the forces of domination control were using trust law to separate the societies into 4 classes of citizens. And if you are the top class of citizen, you knew the secrets of trust law, and only equity could counter that, because you're not in a public court, you're in a private court with just the judge, and the other people there are just to be a witness, right?
Well, now, that's kind of a little bit different from what I'm making a statement of, but yes, that's on the lines. The upper brass people know all about trust law and how to manipulate it. And see, trust law, and they use the term at law.
Yep.
That's the attorney at law. And that's basically the code of law, and that's receptive stuff. Law is actually from God and man. And what man utilizes to, and he's given it to from God, the supreme being. So, and everybody knows you're not supposed to kill.
Doesn't the Bible doesn't the Bible say God will only judge in equity?
That's right. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And see, you're an equal. That's what equity means. You're the equal.
Equal.
As long as you are honorable.
Yeah. Equity existed before the common law courts of the England.
Right.
Equity existed. Equity was the courts before the courts came into being.
Right.
Equity is how all laws were educated before the system of law that we have is now. And in equity, I've done many shows with Michael McCracken on Wolf Spirit Radio on equity, and we simulcast many of them here at Revolution Radio last year into the beginning of January. And equity is the key. And making your own personal trust, defining your role in the trust, is to about defending yourself from the tendrils of the court that want to draw you back into the Outlaw scenario, because the Outlaw scenario is whatever it wants to be. It can counter any move you want and make up rules that you never aware of.
That's right.
Just like this justice who said, you don't belong in the court. Well, honestly, she's taken away all of your substantive rights by making that edict. And through equity, you can force her to nullify that and have the courts remove that edict so that you get justness. There's a difference between justice and justness. Equity is justness.
Okay, I didn't understand what the what now?
Justice, Justice, Justness, justness.
Oh, okay. I got you. Oh.
Equity uses justice has a blind eye. It's the blind lady. Justice doesn't see the extenuating circumstances. Equity sees the extenuating circumstances. And that's how you gain your substantive rights back from the at-law side.
Right. Exactly. You're right on.
So you have blank paperwork.
What now?
You have this blank paper. Well,
right.
you know you could put energy into that blank paper.
Yes.
Okay.
That's true.
So what is your plan now to study this? And what is your plan? Anything you wish to share with us on going into equity?
Well, that's what I'm doing today, and I'm doing it here now, is try to open other people's eyes up to equity,
okay.
And give them some latitude and an area to go study it, that where I had learned a lot from, and that's what I'm sharing. I'm giving what I know and understand back to people that might listen to me.
Okay.
I understand rejection and all that. I've had that happen, and I'm grown from that. You can reject me all day. You're not going to affect me.
Right.
In fact, it's a blessing because that rejection turns around in time to where the people are really ready to go now.
Mm-hmm.
So the rejection is a blessing.
I got a question. Have you ever sat in a court of equity just to see if they actually take cases and what it's like?
Well, see, I was in a court of equity in the foreclosure,
mm-hmm.
but it was at law.
It was an at law.
Right. I did not understand that. All the foreclosure hearings are for equity are at law, and that's the only way an attorney can come into any court is at law.
Right.
Okay? That's all they can do.
Right.
But the true inherent law or the true substantive law of a court, they can't participate in.
Correct. Well, there's the thing. They purposely made the courts this illusionary multi-court system, and in fact, there are many different courts. Think of it like a big fish tank, and you put a divider in the center. So you have fish on the left and fish on the right. And we come in, and we're looking straight on it. We see the fish, but we don't see the divider. And that's what they did with the courts. You don't know that you have to apply to one side because the fish on one side can't see the fish on the other. But the observer just sees one court. And in fact, there's many courts. And to get into a court of equity, you have to see the layers of illusion and then literally get into the court of equity that has no at-law parts of it. It'll be determined by the flag on the wall, the color of the robe the justice is wearing, depending on the type of county you're in, and the type of oath that judge has. Every county is supposed to have a court of equity, and in some states there's only one court of equity, which is in the state house. I'm not exactly which all of that are. And what Festus is talking about is getting beyond the illusion, getting into that single court that's not the at-law side of equity where he lost his home from. Now, getting all this paperwork from one side to the other without the at-law tendrils getting onto it and pulling it back out, that's the key to equity.
Yeah, you're taking it from the at-law side, but you can go through and actually get a judgment at-law. And that's color. That is a colorable judgment. Mm-hmm. And that's what they do.
Right.
That case will never go away. It's still active after the decree has been made. And it can be put back into the equity court at any time. And see, this is what I've been looking for with my cases that I've been in. And to correct, the situation as I best could with going into equity.
Right. Have you read about the injunctive power of equity and what an actual judge from a court can do with this injunctive power?
No, I'm not. I don't know what you're talking about.
A single court of equity can actually put an injunction on the entire Congress, Senate, and federal government to stop doing some of the at-law practices that are against the inherent laws. And that's one of the reasons the court systems eliminated equity and put up the barriers so you couldn't get into it. Because it allows people to present in equity all of their truth. And the at-law side limits your total truth. If you can't put 100% of your story in, the blind justice will only see what it wants and you get screwed.
Right. Well, see, if you did that with the present system we have, 95 to 99% of the people that are in those positions are attorneys or actually advised by the attorneys, so they couldn't actually practice.
Correct. In a court of equity,
right.
Because it's a chancellery.
Well, not even practice what they're doing making law.
Right.
It would be out of the realm.
Mm-hmm. So a chancellery court and a court of equity, in Canada they have chancellery courts and courts of equity everywhere. In America it's a little different. Have you thought about for a judge?
Okay, you broke up on me.
What concept would you present to a court of equity, as you went to discuss what it is, why you wanted to use a court of equity? You've come with clean hands, and those that do equity must do equity. You're there. Right. What would you tell them as part of your statement about why equity is what you need to have a recourse?
Well, I don't know if I would have to make that statement, only to have a trust set up in their court to each case individually, to present to the chancellor the remedy for this case. Right. Each different case would be different. I haven't gotten to that point yet of making that statement or that formulation of that trust.
Right. I'm reading into your Akashic Records that is the future you, and I'm trying to help you see that what it is what you're trying to do is get remedy, and what you really want remedy for is the writ of order from a Supreme Court justice in your state that says you cannot operate in a court. And a court of equity's injunctive power can eliminate all of those writs that deny you your rights. Right. And that's all you want. You want to come in with clean hands, get a remedy, and be done, and get the injunctive power.
Well, I'd like to. Yes, I would like to actually recoup the property that they stole from me. These are the things I have been outwardly trying to accomplish the remedy.
Right. And, well, honestly, the first remedy that you want is you want your rights to operate in a court back.
Yes.
Because you have to come into court with clean hands. Well, the court doesn't have clean hands when you're presenting the actual written order that says you can't operate in a court anymore. Right. And how you present that to the chancellery court or to the equity court, whatever it turns out to be, is how you present it, because there's no jury. You're simply talking to this person who has an injunctive power that listens to your inherent rights, determines if your inherent rights have been effective, and what the remedy would be. You still have to present the remedy. And your remedy would be to rescind this order that says I can't operate in a court. The second part of your remedy would be that all of your at-law equity court stuff would be returned to equity so your property can properly be judged by the inherent and substantive rights of that court, and then be given you a remedy by who's got the clean hands and who doesn't.
Right. Well, that's the thing. That's part of the trust law is it's not your intent, but your actions.
Correct.
And you have to be honorable in the equity court to present the trust in that flavor or that honor that your actions have actually been honorable. You know,
right.
Their actions have been in a malicious manner.
Right. Now, that Supreme Court justice that wrote that edict, and I say edict because that's what it is, that is not clean hands.
Right.
Okay? And once you present the unclean hands and the actions, the court of equity must provide a remedy. And that remedy is to lift all the bans on all other people that this concept has been affected by. And that right there would make that paperwork that you filed and that you took your energy back, put the universal power of karma back in it, all of a sudden that will animate into its own energy and be a boxer sitting there punching the crap out of everyone that wants to go against it. And that's why you're looking for equity, to get the justness.
Right. You're right. Exactly. But yeah, what I do when I do things, I'm not thinking of my situation, but I'm trying to give lead into other people's situation as well, for examples.
Yeah. So I got another question for you.
Okay.
Okay. You know, what I mean, I know this, but for the people that are out there, what brought you to study court? What was the trigger event that said, I need this in my life?
Well, I had a situation that happened to me that was just kind of, out of the blue type thing, and it was kind of a blindsided situation, and I overcame it, and it was when I was working for Clemson University. I was straight out of college, and I didn't know their intent when they hired me. But they called me back from the first interview and said, we would like to hire you. My portfolio was what they were looking for, basically, because I had a diverse area of artwork that could encompass several things that they're doing there. And that's what they presented to me. Well, I kind of had a sense of this place having really bad energy before. When I got in there and started, as soon as I saw people, it would come to me what energy they were having. And that was my part of when I do artwork. I would be intuitive and have this click happen to me. And I was learning to read it at that time when I was doing artwork. And I didn't make a concrete opinion like none of the people, but I had this feeling. And I learned how to handle the feeling in time. But I learned to acknowledge it, but to give the person a chance to give me some alternative, about the feeling I had. So anyway, well, I had an older gentleman that had been there forever, and he invited me to supper, and he was interested in what I was doing and how I was doing things, and I was doing things way different from anybody else that had been in the managerial position over this photography lab I was hired for. And so we talked, and he said, well, what do you think about this person? And I just basically let it out to him. And he looked at his wife, and then he asked me about, well, what about this and this and this and that? I would tell him, well, you have to really watch this person because they will do things behind your back and you think they're friends. And it was just coming out. And he was just sitting there looking at me. He said, I don't know where you came from, but I'm telling you right now, it was spot on. And right then, I made a companion to teach me what their processes were. He had been established in this place. I had to learn from my employees or people I was working with. I don't call employees. I always call them my companions. And they taught me my job. And they accepted that teaching to me. And I tried to give them creative liberty, which they never had before, and they thrived on this. Well, the intent of the people that hired me were to close down the still photography section, who had actually 7 professional photographers in it. And they were going to do the video production area, and that's all they were going to do, because the 2 people on my managers was an engineer who did television engineering and a producer who was over that area who hired me. So they were going to wing out the still photography section, and hopefully they could get a green person that never been in there to kind of fall flat on their face and not energize the older employees that had been there just looking for their date to retire, because everybody I interviewed in a formal setting, and I made it as loose as possible. The first thing they would tell me is, well, my retirement date is 10 years, 2 days, and so many hours. And I would look at them like, I've never been into this situation before. This is weird. You got 10 years and 2 days ago. And they said, yeah, that's my retirement date. So they were in the mode of looking at the end of their career. Mm-hmm. They had nothing to base anything on at the present. So I came in there and gave them creative license. Fall flat on your face. It doesn't matter. Just try it. And we'll do something different. We'll get it done. We'll please the customer. Well, at that point in time, before I was there, people were running away from the still photography section because they didn't have any artistic license. So when I came in there, it took about, I guess, 6 months. And people were starting to talk about the attitude change in the people that would come out and do the photography work. So it was working. And then about a year later, I got an evaluation. And the evaluation was, I don't know what you're doing, but I have never seen the employees here act this way. This is from the person that was right over me, my supervisor, and he was the engineer. And the engineer part came playing in his little realm, and he wanted to stick everybody in their little box. You got a box, and don't get out of the box. Just stay in that box, and you'll be okay. Well, I was out of the box type of situation. And we had our little moments, and anyway, so I went through that ordeal, and they had a project that came up, and they went on for 8 months, and they couldn't get a final thing to present to the president of the university. And this was supposed to raise $5.8 million for research and development in the engineering departments. And so basically what I told the guy, the producer, I said, listen, you got to show the customer what they want, because they're too close to see what they want. And they made changes and everything. So we went over the last project, the last script, and I told him what we would do. So that evolved into the first showing. They accepted it. They loved it after I got through with it, after working 2 months on it. And they accepted that presentment. And the next week, and that day that they presented it, we had just had our first child. Well, the next, 3 days, they called me in, said, Bruce, we need to see you. And they sat down and they said, listen, we're not happy with your performance. And this is after 3 years there. We're not happy with your performance. And you are, they gave me 10 things to do, in the first part of the month, and then they changed it. And I did them within 15 days, and 5 days later, they came back and said, here's 5 more things to do, Bruce, and you got to get them done in 30 days. Now, I did them, presented it to them. They said, well, this is unacceptable, blah, 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 this. And, you are, you got a choice. You can either resign your position or be fired. I said, I don't understand what you're doing here. And I don't accept this process that you're doing. And you started this. I'm going to finish it. Mm-hmm. And when I said that, the top guy over the department pulled out a big, in his lower drawer, I'll never forget as long as I live, and the giant thing of Tums. He pulled out the giant thing of Tums and started eating 5 at a time. I said, are you okay? He didn't answer. He knew he was in a fight. Well, I'm the only person in the history of Clemson University that has gone through the grievance process all the way through the state level and got my job back. They had to fire me before I went to the grievance process. And it was the process was long and gone. It took me a year to get my job back, but I got it back. And that's what started my kind of understanding. And I found out that they were trying to close down in the midst of all this. I really found out what their interest was to hire me straight out of college and put me in a position like that. Mm-hmm. They wanted me to follow my face without any direction. They didn't give me any direction on what I had to do and anything. And to close down the photography section. We were working with old equipment as well. And so that's what happened. And that's what kind of got me clicking. And when it was represented to me about law, I realized I had, I've done what I need to do in art. I've built my foundation of understanding the artistic liberty and breaking parameters in the art field as I see it. And I could utilize this process possibly in law. And I accepted it, and it was tough. It was like learning a new language, a new way of thinking, and a new perspective, which things that I do well. I like that challenge. Still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. I was taking in your story and allow everybody to hear it. It's such an impressive story. You went all the way to the state level, and now at a future view, after that, you actually got an actual Supreme Court justice to write an edict against you.
Right.
Now, that's the key here. That tells how much fight's in your soul.
Well, I don't give up. I mean, when you know you're right, I mean, you really know you're right, and you have done nobody any harm, and you've done your best. You put all your energy into what you were doing. I don't care if it's just raking the yard. And somebody says, well, you missed a spot over here, thank them. Thank them for, helping you, clean the yard up and offer them a right too,
Right.
And
that's what equity is about. And that's what equity is about, helping everybody clean up the yard. Now, something for people to understand, equity is not for everybody. Equity is for the individual. Okay? There are maxims to equity, and these maxims determine the way things are interpreted. And the maxims of equity are very much in your favor here, because the remedy you're seeking is to have your substantive rights returned that were taken away by a Supreme Court justice, because the paperwork you did was so dangerous to the way they function. Okay?
Right. And it was at law. Now,
right.
See, that's another thing. It wasn't, it was common law, but it was actually accepted from their vantage point into at law. In fact, they wanted me to be an attorney in there, but I didn't want to be an attorney. Mm-hmm. And the charge they brought against me after I went and got the indictment from the clerk of court was falsely asserting authority of law with a sham legal document. Now, listen to what I'm saying. Falsely asserting authority of law with a sham legal document. Well, the sham legal document was a habeas corpus, which is a lawful document, which they're supposed to honor.
Yep.
The sham legal is the legal colorable law. So they turned the habeas into a sham legal document. Got me? Yep. Legal is a color law.
Yep.
They were using a sham legal document. A lawful document is a sham legal document. It's a twist on your wording.
Right. They converted the energy and used the transformative powers of the at-law court to remove your substantive inherited rights so that your energy was working against you instead of working for you.
Right. That's right.
And now you want to convert that. So now the psychic you that's called here today, the psychic you that's learned the expressive skills with the court and with the personal, evolution that you're going through and the light energy workers that are with you. Well, here's the next concept. As you're going to get into your court of equity, what you're going to present to them is truly about getting your substantive and inherited rights back, and that the court's only way to remedy that is to use its injunctive power to remove the injunction or edict that says you have no substantive rights in any at-law side. So once again, you can pick up the artillery piece of paperwork and start literally bombarding courts with it all over the country.
Right.
I mean, it's going to be like a bunch of artillery pieces just shelling courts. And they're going to write more things against you. And that's when you're going to have to learn to use the equity to get the people with unclean hands to understand the court of equity's injunctive power can't remove people from office, but it actually can tell Congress to clean up its act. The Supreme Court on numerous occasions has told Congress to stop writing laws that are very detrimental to the effects of other laws because they wrote them vague. No one has ever done this in the history where their remedy is to get the Congress to write the laws the right way, to get the courts to act the way they are with the inherent and substantive rights, and to see all forms of justice and justness. And that's what you want, and that's what you're going to be presenting, something that comes from your soul to put out there in universal law that we want our substantive inherited rights back, and these courts do not provide that in any way, shape, or form, and the remedy is to change the courts and the substantive rights so they can never be taken away again. You can actually put an injunction on the Congress. That means they can no longer pass any more laws until they fix all the ones on the books. And that's a remedy that a court of injunctive power can do. It's just never been done.
That's healing of the nation.
Healing of the nation. In one sense.
Right. Okay.
But only the individual can do equity. So when you've charted your course, and there are others that are going to put up their sails towards this and ride the wind and to get into it, they're going to have to learn from your experiences. There are other people that have gotten injunctions against them in other states, and if they hear your story, well, they're going to pick up their own artillery pieces and start targeting the courts to get an injunction to them so they can go into equity as an individual and do what? Change the world. Change the law.
Right.
So when you're formulating in your mind what you want for a remedy, well, remedy for you is to get your substantive inherent rights back, to get your home back, but ultimately is to go after the Congress, which allows these courts to operate without any controls, and it's done on purpose that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so when you ask the court for remedy, it has to be a mix of heartfelt poetry and law and everything else you can summon to make that Chancellery Court judge to say, well, I have to use my injunctive power to get this clean hands person his inherited rights back. And you can say, well, I want the remedy of that the courts must follow the law, and that the Congress that writes the laws and the Supreme Court that oversees these laws that returns all substantive rights to me.
Okay.
And what that means is you become more than a fourth-class citizen. You have all of your substantive inherited rights with your trust law and contract law that can affect you.
Okay, is this going to turn the patrons, the people I will be trying to teach and understand and will this action actually be the key to turning them over to the equity side of things?
Okay, it will be like that, but it'll be everybody's a sailor in their own ship, and I use that term because it's maritime law, and that terminology brings 1,000 pictures to it, which have 10,000 words attached to own people's definitions. They will set a course on their own ship towards equity and learn it through what others have done, and you'll be one of those that says land ho first, and then the people several miles away from you are still charting their course. He found land. Let's go in that direction. And the next thing you know, there'll be a migration of people left and right going land ho, land ho, land ho. And then the boats will have their cannons and start bombarding the land, which is the court.
Okay. Well, see, for the last, I guess, a year and a half, I have been kind of stagnant, searching and trying to figure out what am I going to do now? What's happening now? Now you basically outlined it for me, and I appreciate that.
You're welcome. And I so thank you for calling in and listening to the shows. And I know some of the teachings I have helped you understand and see things your own way that made you go, this is what I want. Well, let's take this one more step. Okay, let's say you're right now, you've gotten into the real court of equity. You've gotten past the illusion. You're there with your blank paperwork, and you have the judge there, and you need to present your concept to them. What you present to that judge from that first word off as a person of clean hands who understands the maxims of equity, and then you're going to present your remedy. Well, your story is what you want to get out, because in an equity court, they can't stop you from telling the 100% truth. And that will go on a court record, an equity court record that will be made available for people to read, correct?
No, not in a private situation. That's the problem.
All right. Can you show other people, or can you put those transcripts into your trust so everyone else can?
I can teach others how to go about just like what you just said.
Right. So I know
you're teaching everyone here about the private side of the equity court. See, once I have put it in the private side, the trustee and the grantor and the beneficiary cannot speak about it, and there's no transcript that can go out from it. You can't see the trust. It's a private trust.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Right.
That is what you do. That's what it's all about, is nobody sees all they see is the activity resulting from that. I get my house back, Congress change, these type of things.
Well, that's the thing. In a world of publicity and TV and television, private courts, they don't like that information to get out. Right. And there can be an interpretation of clean hands when that information gets out. So what I'm trying to help you understand here is when you go to teach, you need some way to refer to what happened into the court. And that's why you write your story before the court, and what you say verbally and orally as your discussion with the court to get your remedy is so important.
Okay.
The energy you're bringing to this is to get remedy. And to tell your story to get remedy, you have to have a heart space that knows you're already teaching people about getting into the process so they can chart their course to have their own land ho. One of the bigger concepts, you want to be able to change Congress. Well, you have to also present a concept of the remedy that the court has to take under advisement to figure out if that judge really wants to do that. Because he's a private court telling a public Congress, you're doing something wrong, and I'm using the power of this court to say stop it.
Right.
It's never been done before. It's never been done on the circuit court level before.
Well, see, on the trustee side, which he'll be, in the trust will be that edict that he would have to give injunction to the Congress that they would have to return back to the jure, laws.
Right.
And honor the substantive right and clean up all the junk that they have put out here from time back, all the way back, all of them, at-law stuff.
Exactly. So what I'm saying is you actually have to tell the court word by word by word how its injunctive power can be applied and not be pulled into the at-law side where suddenly you're not in a equity court anymore. That's the key is
Right.
giving the information to the judge. And before you go in there, you'll be teaching everybody. It doesn't matter if the judge accepts it or not. It's the fact that you told it.
Right. Yes.
So quite literally, you're telling the judge, I want this remedy. And the judge goes, okay, how do I do that? And you say, your injunctive power does this, this, and this. Your edict will say this, this, and this. The way that it's spread to the non-at-law, the administrative side, because this edict is only going to the administrative side of the courts because 99% of all courts is administrative, correct?
Right.
So you're telling the administrative powers, this court of equity, this inherent court of equity, this man wants the substantive rights returned, and you will do it. Or otherwise you will not be able to create any more court cases. That's what you want to tell the judge, to stop this process so you get your inherent rights back, and thus that's how everybody else goes land ho.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Else could you have had a conversation like this with a live on-air psychic? So I got one more question before we go up. The spiritual stuff that I'm presenting, you've been listening a while. Give us some things that have connected to you so that other listeners can go, I felt the same thing. What is it that connected you to my show and to me? Give us a little idea here.
Well, it's the variety that you have presented to us. And I think you speak it in honesty with conviction, and that's the presentment of it. And I honor that, and I accept it as you present it. And I try to feed off of that energy to make me whole again. I know I was whole before. I'm just parted out so many ways, you see. Now, I react to things, and you had done a crystal speaking of a guy that was a young guy, and you talked about the generator. Mm-hmm. So I suddenly went and got one of the my rare earth magnets I bought 10 years ago, and I pulled them out of the package, and I started wrapping this quartz thing with the thread I found here at the house. I hadn't bought anything. It was just things I had on hand but didn't utilize them right. And you gave that perspective of what to do and how to do it to make a generator, and I did it. I made it that day, and I've been using it ever since.
So when you were making it, what did you feel?
I was putting my healing energy, or the healing intent, into that generator.
Okay. Now, here's a concept for you.
All right.
At some point, you're going to have to write what your statement is to the court of equity.
Okay.
What I want you to do is to get a pen, and I want you to basically make a crystal generator that you're going to wrap onto that pen. And that's going to be your connection to the future you who's already been through the court of equity and has already felt the healing of the world by returning one man's substantive rights. Because they did this edict against you at a Supreme Court level in your state, they made the biggest mistake in the world. They left you no choice but to go to equity with clean hands. And now those clean hands can write a document that can be shared with many thousands. And that crystal that you put on the end of the pen that's got the copper wrapped around it, that's over the end, yet maybe a little outweighted, but that will be your connection into that muse that will connect you into writing about the free man who has all of his substantive rights and can go land ho at 22:34 minutes north, south, east, and west. Everybody go, load up your cannons and start bombarding.
Okay. Now, should I have the point towards the pen or towards me, or
Honestly, I would make two, one with the point going up and one with the point going down.
Okay.
The point going up is so that your outer aura is interacting with the vortex energy. And then the other one is when you're in creative mode, the energy comes down into the pen through your hand, and that will connect you to your crown chakra and your third eye intensely.
Okay, can I use the generator I have made already because there's 2 points on that crystal?
Yes, you can.
Okay, and I can
yes, you can.
regenerate that energy to
Yep.
what I'm...
Yep.
Okay.
You just give it the intention. You say, crystal that I've wrapped, your new intention is about the future me who's going to go to the court of equity to reclaim his substantive inherent rights. I am now going to connect to the muse of this crystal and the muse of my soul so that I may reclaim the substantive rights for me and all brothers and sisters who wish to study this wisdom.
Andrew, I hope I have helped other people.
Oh, you have. You so have. I mean, it really has. I mean, when I read you, I read all of the court energy, and I realize what your paperwork did and how afraid it made the people in South Carolina. What I also know is the way they reacted to you was like they got a kick in the nuts, and that because they left you no choice, the last choice is to take their power away with the inherent rights that you have.
Wow.
It's reclaiming them from the illusion, and the court's the illusion.
That's right. It is, totally.
Okay, those words are going to be in your paper, in your statement. I don't want to say paperwork because it isn't paperwork. Because you're going to be an orator when you're talking to the judge.
Right.
Okay, so you're going to be a traditional person who's speaking from the heart, that's up and saying and presenting his total concept as an orator, and that orator will be in connected to the spirit world, who won't be affected by the at-law court. You'll be in an equity court. But the at-law court energy is going to try to reach in there because the illusion is surrounding the equity court. You can only get into it if you know the way to. And once you're in there, that maze of energy, like octopus tendrils, will reach into the court and try to change the energy. And that's why you're bringing universal law, the return to karma, for them to honor their commitments. And if they don't honor their commitments, what happens is that love pill that I told you about, that reverse of their energy, comes and affects every tendril that's coming into that court to prevent you from reclaiming your substantive inherent rights.
Okay. I appreciate this. I really do. I got a big task ahead of me, and I will do it.
Well, I think it's really important that when you listen to the show again, that you remember you got to take your energy out of the paperwork that's already there. Sure. And I just want to say, I'm like pitching a sale. You should seriously come to Mount Shasta and bring some of your paperwork with you so I could help you let it go. It's got a hold on your soul really hard, really hard. And what you need to do is every day start honestly burning some of this paperwork.
Okay.
Okay? 1 or 2 pages. 1 or 2 pages at a time, seriously. And you've got to say your prayers from your heart to this paperwork. I want my energy back, repaired, renewed, and healed. And I want the universal force of karmic law to return to this paperwork from the void of energy I've removed, so that karmic law may honor their commitments and my energy is no longer invested into it. Because your new investment of energy is going into the inherent court of equity.
And that's going to create acceptance from other people.
Correct. Because they will be able to look at their compass and know you've already said land ho. They're going to load up their cannons. They're going to get everyone. They're going to put the sails full into the wind, and then they're going to be heading there full speed.
Perhaps they will burn theirs as well.
Correct.
Their paperwork. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
And maybe you can even teach them how to recall their energy.
Right.
That's something that you could put a few hours or days into thinking, I want all my energy back from this paperwork. I don't want the court to use it anymore.
Right.
So what is it that you need to do prayer-wise, heart-wise, researcher-wise to say this, and then to teach that to others? That may be a very substantive part of what you teach others that are already doing their own at-law side to recall their energy.
each different bubble of reality is true.
A galactic historian is a person that looks at all the lines of dramatic karma.
Nudge, nudge. It's the Holy Grail.
Improvise. Mysterious.
It's counter psychic intelligence.
Why is DNA farming of this star cluster so important?
Because we do manifest our reality. We do create our reality.